this event on October 15th. So that's coming up. I'm going to run on a treadmill for 24 hours, which again, I said never a treadmill, years ago. And now I'm like running on it for 24 hours. So we'll see.
For 24 hours.
It's that progression, right? It's like, no, I'll never do it. And then you start to do it and I can do this. And you start to get a little better at it. And now I'm going to see how good I'm actually at it. So.
So that's for an event, the 24 hours on a treadmill?
Yeah, it's an event I really put together back in January and have been trying to get some support around it. But it's going to be at the Hoka store in New York City. Okay. Partner with a New York-based nonprofit called Achilles International. They support athletes with disabilities. They're internet. I mean, they're all over the world. So they might just an incredible organization that has been instrumental in my journey as a runner and so many other people with disabilities and getting them to running and marathoning and supporting them throughout their own journey. So they've kind of been the driver behind this. Hoka has been a sponsor of theirs for a couple of years now. So it's taking place at the Hoka store in New York, not too far from where Achilles is based. And so it's going to be a thing. There's people, if your listeners want to join, there's going to be a treadmill next to me where people can run and run with me. And it's going to be a day of festivities. I'll do the suffering, but people can enjoy the refreshments and some treadmill time if they want. And is Adam Popp, and I'm a renegade.
Well, I'm going to reveal to our listeners that I am wearing the Waddy collection. This is the tee.
What up?
And Waddy, it's fantastic. I'm usually wearing it during my run, so I pulled it out of the laundry, and it's clean. So
I was just going to ask, clean or Deerte?
Don't try to church it up.
My.
So what flavor of athletic are you going with tonight?
Well, when you're not right side up, you are upside down.
Excellent. And if it's October, you're looking for the October Fest brew.
Prost. Cheers.
We have a great guest coming on, Mark.
Do we ever?
Going along the 6 degrees of Dr. Mark Kugazella. We had Dr. Mark, who introduced us to Mike Spindler from the JFK 50.
That's right.
Mike Spindler introduced us to Adam Popp.
That's right. And in there's like an in-laws, sister's, brother's best friend that is related to Kevin Bacon. So that's the connection there with the 7... what's it called? The 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon? 7? I forget how many degrees there are.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, I think we're only 3 degrees away from Adam. But hey, what a story. And our listeners know why do we do this podcast? We do this podcast because we love to learn from those doing big things.
That's right.
And Adam, you're going to be introduced to him. You want to talk about someone who's doing big things? Adam Popp is doing big things.
Popp. I'm looking forward to this conversation. It's going to be, he's got world records. He's got so many wins under his belt, and it's phenomenal. So wait till you hear his story. It's going to be great.
He's a 12-year combat veteran of the Air Force. He was deployed to Afghanistan and Iraq, and he was an Explosive Ordnance Disposal team leader. That's his background. His story really begins in 2007 when he was disarming a roadside bomb. A secondary bomb went off, resulting in his amputation of his right leg, right above his knee. And, Adam's story, this point in time led Adam on the path to search for meaning and purpose in his life. And that's how he shared he found running. And not just found running, the launching pad to who he is today. Mark, you said it. Yeah, I think he has 7 Guinness World Records.
Wow.
The first above-the-knee amputee to complete a 100-mile ultra marathon within a 30-hour time limit. That means he got his belt buckle. Since then, that was in 2016. Since then, multiple 100-mile finishes with a time of 16 hours and 13 minutes. This is crazy. Unbelievable. He won the Boston Marathon Para-Elite Division. And then 6 days later, he flew over to London, ran the London Marathon in 3 hours and 8 minutes. And in addition to this, where he holds a special place in our hearts, 6 JFK finishes, and not just JFK finishes, he's run it in some remarkable times, like in the 8 hours. And that's our connection with Mike Spindler and Adam. And what a story. And we're going to dive in and understand Adam's journey. I'm so excited.
I
got a feeling,
looking forward to this. Yeah.
I got a feeling that Adam's got a little Marcus Aurelius in him. The obstacle is the way. The challenge becomes the way. And I can't wait to hear his story. And then he also has some really cool stuff coming up in the month of October that he's going to dive into as well. So Renegades, stay tuned. We'll be bringing on Adam.
How's it going?
Welcome.
Great. Good to see y'all.
We started this probably last December. We started the Renegade Podcast, and we've had like 20 great guests come on. And the one thing that all our guests on the Renegade have in common is they do big things. And, walking through your career, your life, your running journey, Adam, you've done some huge things. And those things haven't come without challenges, though. And that's what we really want to introduce the Renegade Podcast audience to, is who Adam Popp is and how did you begin your running journey and how did you evolve over time into who you are today? If you could share that with our listeners.
Yeah, so I grew up in a very small town. So you're talking about in the country, Todd. And I grew up in a town of 400 people. And I grew up playing ball sports and spending a lot of time outdoors. But yeah, mainly like soccer, baseball, basketball. And if you know anything about ball sports, running is a punishment. So I was never really enjoyed running. And that is really until it was taken away from me. At least I thought it was taken away from me when I was injured in Afghanistan, lost my leg as a result of a improvised explosive device. And then I went from one day being what I thought was the most physically fit person, the most able, capable, independent person, to laying in a hospital bed and relying on other people to take care of me. And, really just not knowing if I'd be able to walk, let alone run, let alone do so many other things. So that unknown really weighed on me. And I was in that space for a long time, even after losing my leg. And running wasn't introduced to me until 7.5 years after losing my leg in 2015. And that's when I think really got over some mental barriers that were preventing me from some of the acceptance there. And then really start to pursue, some challenges and in a more positive and productive manner.
So how soon after that was your first real run that you entered then? So you said after about 7 years after you started to kind of get into it. Was it around that time frame that you entered into your first run, or was it more of a gradual? What was your process there? Yeah,
the first run was kind of what prompted me to go up to the hospital, get a running prosthesis, and try this thing that I thought I couldn't do. So it was an event in Washington, in Washington State. And it was a bunch of team members who I'd been up there several times with to do this relay race. And oftentimes I did a canoeing section in this multi-sport relay race. And then, it was that key motivator of trying to be the runner this year. And that's what prompted me to go up to the hospital, get a running prosthesis, and then try this thing out that I hadn't experienced in 7.5 years. And it was challenging to relearn because I had such an ingrained gait of walking and the walking prosthetic that I used, and let alone the cardio that, from sitting on the couch for 7.5 years will put you in a big hole there. So Absolutely. It was a very challenging endeavor. But I think, just that process of, with any runner who was never a runner before and starting this journey to kind of the unknown, it's a walk or crawl, walk, run phase. And I was in that crawl phase for quite a while of running slow miles, walking a lot.
Yeah.
But it just gave me this new freedom that once I discovered it, I wanted to pursue it persistently. And that's kind of what led on to things later in life.
And did you have to try different prostheses? Were there multiple, or was it just really this is your option, or like how was that process for determining what was going to work best for you?
Yeah, it's almost just like running shoes, right, or running equipment
Yeah.
in general, and it's what works best for the individual. So initially, I had one option. It was kind of what people were using
Yeah.
at the time and what was given to me through the hospital. And I had the opportunity to try several along the way. And I come to find out like the one I started with is the one that works best for me. I've done some pretty like high level testing with some researchers, both here in Boulder and the Olympic Training Center, to kind of look at that prosthetic return and efficiency and all those things that would work with me as a runner and how I use it. And, this is the one that I've found over time works best for me. And it's been just kind of, it has been a process, and to come back to what I began with is, a little bit fortuitous.
Wow. Now, with the prosthesis, when you're running, Adam, do you think about it? Do you think about it as a runner would think about a running shoe, or is it become second nature that it's a part of you and you don't think of it in that term anymore?
Great question. I'll, again, maybe just turn it back to the able-bodied community, where I'm sure you can imagine some days you go out and things feel second nature, and then some days you go out and like, oh, I have this like little twinge in my calf or my Achilles, or but some days it's second nature. I just go out the door, and over time, it's been 10 years now into this running journey with a prosthesis that a lot of times, I'll just walk out the door and everything's fitting great, feeling great, and you just go and don't really think about it. It's kind of the way my life is now. And then there are other days where it's the alignment's a little bit off, or the fitment doesn't feel exactly right, or, and it's similar to, when you go out and might feel that rock in your shoe, or twinge in your calf, or hamstring tightening, or whatever that might, tiredness in your legs, So there is a range there for sure. And it's much different than when I started early on, obviously. When I first started on, it was more the thoughts were don't fall, don't be careful what you're doing, like very focused on the mechanics of everything. But yeah, over time, it just becomes second nature now to go out and just put it on and run and not think twice about it.
Amazing. So
go ahead, Mark.
No, please go ahead, Todd.
I was going to say, like, you touch on something when you started there, and I think this probably is the Adam Popp. You said in the 7.5 years that you didn't run after you lost your right leg, something changed. And what changed? Like what was that kind of point that, for 7.5 years, you mentioned you were joking around, like, I was lying around on the couch, but what was the inflection point? What drove you to make a change, and what was that change?
I don't know if we have enough time tonight to get into this, but I'm happy to start. There was a lot going on. And, when I initially lost my leg, I also broke the femoral neck in my hip and had some hardware in my hip and femur. There was also necrosis in my hip, which means my bone was dying, and I was on osteoporosis injections, like daily shots that, older women mainly take to strengthen that bone. And, what they told me at the time while I was at the hospital is no high impact sports. The more high impact sports you do, the more likely that you might have to have a hip replacement. So I think, looking back, that's, yes, medical advice. And also it was probably a good excuse to kind of get out of something that didn't feel right at the time. Or, as I mentioned from my background, like something that I didn't necessarily want to dive headfirst into, but it sounded intriguing at the time. I'll run, I'll do all these things that I did before and try to get back to baseline before I leave the hospital. But all that was a good out to not have to really put a lot of time and work in. And years later, flash forward 7.5 years, there were a lot of things that were kind of coming together in my life. And it started really with a January 1st New Year's resolution of like cutting out drinking. And then it just snowballed from there into going back to school and just volunteering more, and then trying to run, and then which led into triathlon, and just really a pivotal moment of exploration for me and curiosity, and just trying a bunch of things out that were so outside of what day-to-day life looked like for me over, again, those 7.5 years. But yeah, it started with that New Year's resolution, which snowballed into going back to school, running, triathlon, volunteering, being more involved in my community. And from there, I was like, wow, this is really amazing. And I tried so much in that year of 2015, and there were, maybe 60% of the things I didn't necessarily love. But it was, 10 times, 20 times the amount of stuff I was doing previous to this. And it really opened up so many doors and opportunities that, I found a few that I really clung to and just really pursued them. And from there, it was just game on over the past 10 years now.
It's phenomenal. So a New Year's resolution. So you must have always been a very disciplined person, though, like over time. So have you been somebody that you've always kept your New Year's resolutions, whatever you set out? You see a goal and you go for it, right?
Great observation, Mark. And no, so I would like to say I think discipline is a good word. And I'm the type of person who is kind of all or nothing, right? So It's like, if I'm all in, I'm all in. And that can be to our benefit and it can be to our detriment. And I think that's the key factor, right? Is prior to 2015, and many times it was to my detriment. But what I found over time is, yes, that discipline can be powerful. That all-in mentality can be powerful. And it's kind of how we use it, right? So that's what I learned in Pivotal. And it's a great observation on your point of that is my mentality. And I didn't really understand or know how to work with it in a productive manner previously. And then once I kind of reined it in and understood kind of how I worked as a person, then it, especially when you put it to something like running and you're all in, then you kind of see the results that I've seen over the past several years. So,
well, and not to mention, is it 2 master's degrees too?
Yeah, that's right. Two master's degrees. And again, that started in 2015. So in 2015, I didn't even have an undergrad. And that's what I went back to school for, was to like finish my undergrad. And then I was like, oh, there's something here. And again, all in. And then I snowballed that to a master's degree in clinical counseling at George Washington University. And then recently did the sport and performance psychology at Denver University. And all in again. But again, that was a little bit different way of all in as 2007 to 2015, really.
Yeah. Amazing.
Mark, you touched on it there with your first run. So your first run, you're worried about just falling down. You're worried about everything that new runners are worried about. How did you progress? Like, what did your progression look like? How did the first run turn into your 10th run, and then signing up for your first race? What did that look like?
My progression looked like similar to what I mentioned, the one race on the calendar. That's all that I really had in mind, right? So it was a 3-mile trail section of that multidiscipline race called Ski to Sea. And that's really all it looked like. And, I knew I was showing up for a team. So there was kind of that, I wouldn't necessarily call it pressure, but there was a little bit of pressure there, a little bit of motivation there that, I need to show up for my team and do well, or at least like progress to the best of my ability in the 6 weeks that I have, and to show up for my team. So that's really what it looked like. And what it looked like day to day was starting from zero and going out. Well, my first run was on a track inside a physical therapy at the hospital, like a physical therapy room, where I was attached to a harness, rope attached to the ceiling, and a 200-meter track around the top where, in case I fell, the harness would catch me. And that's what my first run looked like. And it was scary. And I was like kind of skip hopping and didn't really know how to control my gait. And then it progressed to a desolate parking lot that I didn't want to go out in front of public and have people see me fall or struggle. So I was in this desolate parking lot on a military base close by in Arlington, Virginia. And I just spent 3 or 4 weeks out there, four-ish days a week, maybe 30 minutes to an hour in this parking lot running circles. And, those first few days were a lot of walking, run for maybe like 3 to 5 minutes and then have to take walk breaks. But yeah, by the end of that 5 or 6 weeks, I was able to go out and complete that trail section of Ski to Sea. And I was maybe like 5th to last, but I couldn't care less. I was just like so blown away about the big amount of progress that I made in a short amount of time, that, and learning and having the ability to do this thing that I thought was taken away from me, that, after that, it was more to what you're saying, like, okay, what race is next? And that year I progressed from, that race. And then later in the year, I did, Air Force half marathon, the Army 10 miler, and then my first marathon, all within like the next 7 months. So
wow.
What's incredible is I just,
7 months.
it was kind of that consistency piece that I kept up. And then by that probably fifth month, I ran Air Force half marathon, and I ran that race faster than when I had 2 legs. I ran 1 half marathon before I lost my leg. And then, 6 months into my running journey, I was already running faster than when I had 2 legs. And there's something to be said there, and it's not what you think. It's because I wasn't training very hard before.
Still though,
Yes.
even going from 3 to 5 minutes, like you were saying, all the way up to, half marathons, 100 milers, that's just phenomenal growth over the years, right? Wow.
And I think it speaks to Adam. If you ever have a team event, you want Adam on your team.
Yeah. First dibs. Yeah. First pick.
He's going to put in the work. That's for sure.
Show up, that's for sure. Doesn't always work, but
Adam, you said that when you got the running leg, you were tied to a harness.
Mm-hmm.
What was different about it? Walk us through, as runners who haven't experienced anything that you've experienced. What did it feel like? Was it like learning to walk all over again, learning to run all over again?
It's difficult to explain. But when I started with my walking prosthesis in 2008, let's call it, that was like probably learning to walk again, right? And the prosthetic I use for day-to-day ambulating and walking has a very smart microprocessor in the knee. So I don't have my anatomical knee. And the microprocessor computer thinks for me. Similar to like how you would articulate your knee, this computer articulates my knee and most of the time prevents me from like falling, or if I take a misstep, like catching me, giving me a lot of balance and stability. And that's what I used for 7.5 years, and it's learning to walk with that. And it became second nature, and it's very stable, and it's just, I never thought about it really. And then when you put on a running prosthetic, like the one I use, you have a mechanical knee, no computer, nothing to control it. It's, basically like a door hinge that swings when you run. There's a little more to it. There's a little bit of resistance, but for the most part, it's unstable. It's not necessarily safe. If you hit your toe on a rock or a root when you're trail running, it'll buckle and you'll fall down. So those are the things that were different from the prior 7.5 years. And learning to run on that, it was completely foreign. Like I had nothing to compare it to. And it, like I think I mentioned earlier, it was a lot of trying to learn the gait, which looked like skipping. And, the only thing I had done over the past 7.5 years was walk. And there was no like way to run or speed up. It was like a skipping motion when I started. And that was like so ingrained. I was like, I'm never going to be able to get it. I'm never going to like relearn this. But with time, it started to like, I started to like retrain my brain to be able to control it and how the motion would go and the feeling. And I don't know if you've ever tried to like relearn something like that, but it's difficult. And similarly, when I started driving, I lost my right leg. So I used my left leg to control the gas and brake, which the first few weeks of that felt scary. Like if next time you're in a car, like just try to drive with your left foot, and it's completely foreign. But with anything, the more we do it, the more we train it, the more we actually practice it, the better we become at it, and the more second nature it becomes. And that's what happened with driving, what happened with walking, what happened with running. And that's, I think that's maybe part of my challenges before was, it'll take too much time and it's scary and it's unknown. Where now I kind of more embrace those challenges as opposed to like, shy away from them.
So do you find then, you mentioned trail running earlier and how you hit a route or you hit anything, then you could take a tumble, which I'm sure I haven't done a lot of trail running myself, but I can imagine that extra sense of caution that you're likely taking now. Like, is there any refinement or adjustment that you can do to your prosthesis in order to get it ready for a race like that? Or like how adjustable, I guess, is it?
Great question and observation again. Before I would just totally not even consider trail running. So that's how I got over that. But once I started a trail run, there are adjustments that I can make to the knee and blade where it makes it a little more stable. So what I found is over time, like small adjustments where you're either more on the toe or less on the toe becomes less stable or more stable. The trade-off is it's going to be a little slower on the return and the speed you can run. So, and say like JFK, since that's kind of like top of mind, when I'm running those first 13 miles over the AT section, most of it's AT. There's some like road running, there's some hill climbing. But, I set it up to be more stable specifically for the trail sections, although I'll be a little bit slower on the limited like flat or road sections. So I'll set it up slower there. And then when I get to past Weaverton Cliffs, it becomes pretty much flat marathon after that. Then I'll like literally change my blade out to be set up to the more on my toe and a little bit faster, change into a road shoe, and then, perform the blade will perform better there. It's less stable, but there's less technical terrain as well.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So yeah, so then
and I think you're being kind. Like Adam's JFK time, you got some fantastic times. What's your fastest JFK?
I think I ran 8:40 and change there last year, which is not pretty good for me. I'd like to add a caveat there too. All my times at most of my times at JFK, I've like run something the previous week, and so just in my defense, last year was the first time in a while that I hadn't done anything. I did an Ironman October 11th, and then I had like 5 weeks to get ready for JFK. So that's probably why I ran my best time there, because I wasn't running any big events the weekend 6 days prior.
Yeah, there you go. And then you said you when you got to the towpath section, you switched out to your shoe. You got a Hoka hat on. Are you a Hoka guy? I
am, yeah. And I love the stuff on the trail, and I've been running in their new road shoe, and that's that came out this year, and I'm stoked about it. Yeah, I run all my road stuff in it now. How about you?
Well, we're ultra guys. We love our ultras. Okay. So, but you know what? We just love shoes. Like I try everything. So there's the superiors, Lone Peaks.
Yeah, and to our point earlier, it's like individual, right? So it's I'm sure you've tried many a different shoe, and then once you find what works for you, it's stick with it. And
that's right.
And like another thing I learned this year too, or in the past since JFK last year, is the running sole I have on my blade is a road sole, and I've ran the AT 6 times now, and I don't know why this didn't occur to me earlier, but my road sole on the rocks there just totally sucks. And this year I changed out to Vibram. I had it like resoled with Vibram from a local cobbler here, and it's like night and day difference. So that's another consideration that I probably should have learned over the past several years, but it wasn't until this year that I was like, oh, maybe I'll try this out. And it worked incredible. And, that's my go-to now is having that sole on for anything that's off the road.
And I just shaved minutes off your times too, as well. I don't think
super. I mean, I rate my JFK performances by how often or how many times I fall in the AT section. And it was definitely less this year. Still not 0 yet, but
I'm still developing my trail chops, Adam. So I would classify that as my first real legit 50-mile ultra marathon. And that AT section was pretty treacherous at some points. And I stubbed my toe so bad, I lost a toenail. I flipped out many times up there, and it was fun. It's good. Everyone helps you out.
And was that this past year?
Yeah. This past year.
Yeah. Congrats.
It was
incredible.
It was super fun. And I'm coming back. I'm going to come back and run it in November. So we're actually going to go see Mr. Mike in the What did he say, Mark? It was the trouble room. We have to go find him in the trouble room.
Trouble room. Is it danger room? Trouble
Maybe
room?
I'm
I
in
can't
trouble.
remember.
I don't know.
Is that like a command control or command center for?
It might be.
Oh, that's awesome.
Putting out all the fires on race day. He's an incredible race director. So.
Hey, Renegades. A big part of the Renegade Podcast is sharing with you, our listeners, the stuff that works for us. And we have an excellent friend of the podcast, Path Projects. Founded in 2018, they're focused on functional designs, innovative materials, and apparel that looks great in the city and gear that excels on the most grueling of trails. They offer a complete range of technical gear and apparel for today's modern athlete. And they're constantly innovating. New in 2024, they brought us their Graves PX Shell running jacket, a whole new lineup of technical tees featuring their Tensolite T19 jersey material. It's soft, the perfect fit, and it just performs. They brought us their Wadi collection, ultralight meets UV protection, offering a tank, a tee, and a hoodie. And now, most recently, the Montera collection, a jogger and a hoodie. All-day sweats with serious performance chops. Ultra soft 4-way stretch fleece, allowing you to smoothly transition from daily wear to cool weather training. And for our listeners, use the code RENEGADE10 for 10% off your order for a limited time. And we'd like to thank Path Projects for being a great friend of the podcast.
Oh, I could only imagine. So you have a few then coming up that you're looking forward to?
A few.
Do you have a few runs coming up that you're looking forward to training for?
Yeah, I did. I've done quite a bit this year already, but I did a marathon 3 weeks ago now that I was training really hard for, and now it's kind of recovering from that and then getting ready for this event on October 15th. So that's coming up. I'm going to run on a treadmill for 24 hours, which again, I said never a treadmill, years ago. And now I'm like running on it for 24 hours. So we'll see.
Or is it?
Yeah. It's that progression, right? It's like, no, I'll never do it. And then you start to do it and I can do this. And you start to get a little better at it. And now I'm going to see how good I'm actually at it. So.
So that's for an event, the 24 hours on a treadmill?
Yeah, it's an event I really put together back in January and have been trying to get some support around it. But it's going to be at the Hoka store in New York City.
Okay.
Partner with a New York-based nonprofit called Achilles International. They support athletes with disabilities. They're internet. I mean, they're all over the world. So they might have some in the Toronto area, a chapter up kind of near you guys, maybe Detroit. Detroit has a huge presence actually, and they Achilles has a huge presence at the Detroit Marathon. So if I guide runners for visually impaired athletes, or like I've ran several marathons with them back when I was hand cycling before I started running, but then also more recently when I started running with a blade and support runners to help me navigate aid stations or the crowds, especially at the bigger marathons, like you mentioned. Support getting athletes to the starting line and training plans. And it's just an incredible organization that has been instrumental in my journey as a runner and so many other people with disabilities and getting them to running and marathoning and supporting them throughout their own journey. So they've kind of been the driver behind this. Hoka has been a sponsor of theirs for couple years now. So it's taking place at the Hoka store in New York, not too far from where Achilles is based. And so it's going to be a thing. There's, if your listeners want to join, there's going to be a treadmill next to me where people can run and run with me. And it's going to be a day of festivities. I'll do the suffering, but people can enjoy their refreshments and some treadmill time if they want. And
that's amazing.
Yeah,
that's awesome. So I was going to ask you, I guess then what kind of, are you looking to travel a digital distance then on the treadmill, or is it just more the 24-hour clock that you're trying to cover? What kind of goal are you setting for yourself for that?
There are many intermediary goals along the way.
Yeah.
I did my first, I did my first 24-hour event this past February, and it kind of like brought up a lot of questions for me, or a lot of like realizations, things I hadn't thought about in the past. But that event was mentally taxing and physically taxing, and I'm kind of carrying what I did in February like over to the treadmill now. So, what I did in February was 100 miles in 16 hours, and then 100K, 50 mile, 50K, and like set all personal best, which are also world records at that event. And that's kind of what I'm gauging or aiming for at this event is similar, right? So it's like a 50K time, a 100K time, a 12-hour time, a 24-hour time, a 100-mile time. And there are kind of intermediary goals along the way to hit those distances and times by. So that's kind of what I'm shooting for. I can't tell them like off the top of my head, but
well, that's all right. But because you're in a stationary or in a room, are you able to binge watch something? Like, and if so, what is it going to be?
Yeah, totally. That's a great question, because the treadmill I use is pretty incredible. I had an old treadmill off Craigslist for years. I enjoyed it at times, especially being in, a place with a lot of snow. I'm sure you can relate to this, but to get my runs in, I would spend a lot of time on the treadmill, and I had this like computer hooked up to it, and it was just kind of a jankety system. But the one I have now is like brand new, and it has like a huge monitor on it, and it has like Netflix that's connected to it, and it's all like integrated. So you just get on and like hit the touch screen, and like anything you want to watch is at your fingertips. So I've been spending a lot of time on the treadmill preparing for this event, and I think I've ran through and the end of Netflix at this point. I've watched everything on there, so I don't know what I'm going to watch actually on race.
What is the end of Netflix? Yeah, what is the last show?
Yeah. How often does that? Are you still watching this come on? Right? It's like, yes. So.
Nope, I'm at the end.
So Adam, you touched on something earlier. You said that you came up with this event. So help us understand. Treadmills suck to begin with. Did you go out to find this? Is this Adam like, treadmills suck, so I'm going to go on a treadmill for 24 hours? Was that the goal?
Not his treadmill. I'm going to live on his treadmill. That sounds awesome.
I mean, that's kind of how it came about. It was back in January. Maybe to bring the full picture, Guinness World Records in 2021 started this category for people with disabilities, and recognizing people with disabilities and the records they're setting on par with their able-bodied counterparts. So it's a pretty new initiative. And, when I saw the article, there was a lady who I know from the ultra community, a baloney amputee named Amy Winters, who ran 100 mile on the treadmill and like set this new world record. And that was like the kickoff to the Guinness initiative and them announcing it. And so that kind of like stuck in my head over the past 3 years now. But what I was focused on was more like road and trail running, which once I learned of this initiative, then I started like applying for races that I had done. And that's where I mentioned in February that some of those new records were like lowered during that event. And so I kind of exhausted that side of it, meaning the road and trail running side of it. So now it was like, what's next? I'm going to try this event that, the lady did before back in 2021. And just kind of take it to a different level. I wouldn't say a new level, because she's pretty incredible, but a different level where it'll be 24 hours and then kind of do those like intermediary distances along the way. So yes, so it was kind of not necessarily my brainchild or idea, but it was building off and recognizing something that had happened before in my own like progression and journey from the road running and trail running side to what this now event's going to be.
Really nice. And then, so I imagine with the races that you're running, it's becoming more of a family affair. So bring the crew on the road, and you have one on the way too as well.
That's right? So unfortunately, she won't be able, meaning my wife, we're also having a daughter. So neither one of the she's will be able to attend this event. Because my wife is due November 11th, and that's kind of the timing for this too. Is like get these. Like, I have a lot of fitness right now. I need to like get this out before I'm having to like spend and refocus, like rightfully so, on my family and the new addition. But yeah, my son, he's 2. He just turned 2 on Friday, and yeah, I think one of my biggest values, or the most important thing in this whole like running thing, is my family, and not trying to fit my family into running, but running into my family and family life, right? So my son has been all over the world at this point, and he's 2. We've really taken advantage of that 2 and under fly free. He's been to New Zealand. He's been to Spain. I did the pair triathlon world championships in Spain, and he was there cheering me on. He's been to Florida for a big America's Cup, and he's been to the track event in February, and that was a really cool event because I'm running for 17 hours around a 400-meter track, and he's just in the middle of the track playing with his ball and like throwing it, and he's like watching me run, but I'm I get to see him literally every step of the way. So that's very unique for a 100-mile race, and was like he was there like holding my hand at the start, and there's some like cool pictures from that, and it's just it's become, again, fitting running into the family life, but they come with me and support me like immensely throughout these crazy adventures.
Well, it'd be amazing if, Hoka or Ultra, start sponsoring, the family members, the kids that are like along for the ride too, as well, right? You're just, trying to influence the next generation, right? In the right direction. So
he loves to run too. We were up at Leadville camping about a month ago, and there's some it was like a cross country boys team, shirts off, running the Turquoise Lake Trail up there, and he saw them go by, and then he was like right behind them, just in his diaper, like cruising down the trail. So yeah, I need to get him a little set of trail shoes for that.
That's awesome. And it's setting a positive example. Like when I started running about 2016. My daughters at the time, I think they were probably like 8 and 10. And I was so hoping the bug would catch on and maybe they would run with me. Hasn't happened yet. Adam.
Right.
Every time I mention want to go for a run, I get like, ooh, no, run. So I'm still trying.
Wait till they're like our age, and then they'll get it.
Yeah, that's why we got to stay in shape when they catch up to us. Like when I'm in my 60s, hopefully I'll still be, motoring around wherever I am on the course somewhere at the aid station, most likely.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can agree more with that, right? It's more about the example, positive influence, the like congruence in our values, as opposed to trying to like force them into something, right? It's like us living our authentic lives, where I think prior to 2015 I wasn't doing that well, and I'm glad I didn't have kids yet, because I had a lot of time to reflect on that and like live a more authentic and congruent life, which my son sees that even at the young age he is. And, I'm grateful for finding that when I did, and having him when I did.
Yeah. You're bang on. Like some folks never find it, Adam. Some folks find it later in life. Some folks find it when they're younger and in their days. But when you do, life blossoms. And there's a lot of like truth in your story about taking action, putting big goals in front of you, staying focused, not being afraid, community, getting involved in the community. All those things all have positive impacts on our mental health, our physical health, our community. Like when we're involved in our community, and the rates of depression are down. And that's something that's understated, because sometimes we can come insular and start thinking about, oh, I'm not feeling good, or I think I'm not good enough. And if you constantly are thinking about yourself, you can spin. But if you can get out of that and start to get involved and find something, find a running group, find running community. And that's what we love about trail running and running in general, is so opening and welcoming. Now, for the most part, there are some folks who they can be a little bit type A too much.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of truth in that, to be involved and find a community, and you will find something happier, a better place.
Yeah.
Is that what you found with your psychology angle and degree and work?
Yeah, totally. And much more. And I want to key in on something that you said about that community aspect and the people within this community. And I want to turn it back to Mike Spindler, because he's kind of what brought us here. And, he's like, so he talked about his son being in the military, and, his race is centered on JFK and like military service, and the officers like hiking the 50-mile ruck. And, something he's told me in the past is like, he was too involved in running and other things in his life to like serve. And he kind of regretted that. I'm like, dude, like you serve in so many other ways. Like there's more to service than just being in the military. And the way he's like served the running community, his athletes within that local Hagerstown community, and so many other, and me, for example, he's impacted that community and people like me and his athletes within that community, in ways that he never would have been able to if, he was out serving somewhere else. So his service to that race, the community, and the things you just mentioned, like, gives me great hope for this community at large.
Yep. And when Mike was on our podcast, you could feel the energy. So he was infectious energy, positivity. I got lots of folks afterwards saying, "Hey, I'm thinking of signing up for the JFK just to be a part of this event, this history." And it probably speaks to who Mike is.
Yeah.
Being involved and bringing that is probably one of the reasons why he is the way he is. He's got so much energy because there's I think we called it the love story. It's like, 40 or 45 years of involvement with the entire Spindler family.
It's right.
It's amazing.
And he does a dinner the night before and he's like out there storytelling and it's never about him or his accomplishments. It's about that community, his team, the people from that race. And it's a good chance to go hear some good storytelling.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean,
that's what we've really found, even with kicking off this podcast, is the running community, even on an international basis, has just been phenomenal. And the whole premise of this is that I am this noob who just started running occasionally and that. And then you have Todd, who's been running a little bit more, has done some quite a bit more international runs too. He's flown over to Europe. He's down in the States. It's, amazing. And through his storytelling is what is how I caught it.
Mm-hmm.
And so just a little bit at a time. I do it more for recreation and just for some physical health. And that I've got young kids and so it's all I can do right now. But just the people have been phenomenal. The stories, the community is just that's contagious. And that's just, I can only imagine at these runs that you go to the night before, as you mentioned, the dinner, and just talking that person next to you while you're running, the conversations that you're having with people Todd's mentioned too as well. It's just, you're learning so much about different people and you're all there for a purpose, but just everyone coming together is an amazing thing. So you must really enjoy that. That's almost like a high that you'd get from running these races, I imagine. So maybe one day I'll get there running race. But until then, I'm just running in the cemetery here by myself.
We've all been there. And yeah, I think it's even more so, at least for me, the races are great, but what I found, especially when I was living here in Denver too, yes, but I was living in Arlington, Virginia, outside of Washington, D.C., and that was really my first experience with a new community after leaving the military, a new, like, positive, influential community that I could really connect with outside of leaving my military service. So when I was in the military, we had very like tight bonds and relationships. And, once I left, I kind of lost all that. And then I found this running club through Team RWB. It's a military nonprofit that connects veterans to like local communities and civilian counterparts. And basically it's centered a lot on athletics and running and, other things in the athletic community outside of running. But and that's where I found this new community within the city I was living. And it really just like started to build that portion of my life again that I thought, or that pillar of my life that I thought was a little bit, undefined or not as good as it could have been in that situation. So
it's amazing.
And Adam, so maybe you can walk our listeners through. We got lots of listeners who listen to the podcast who are always looking for training nuggets. What does your training look like to prepare yourself for a 100-mile race, this 24 hours on a treadmill? Like, what a day, a week, and a month look like for Adam's training?
Now is much different than when I started, right? Okay. So I might caution a little bit in the sense that I've built up to this over 10 years. And when I was starting, it was a lot of long, slow distance, or long, I wouldn't even say long, but just consistent, like slow miles. And then, 10 years later, I'm able to put in some pretty big big volume. And for this treadmill event, I got like close to 130 miles. So I don't know, K, if you want to do Ks, I don't know what that is in Ks exactly.
We're close to the border, Adam. We can convert.
200 and something Ks. But yeah, I got up to like, 100 and close to 130 miles for this one back in February. For that 24-hour event, I was a little over 130, and had a couple weeks at around 100 or a little bit over. And those are the biggest weeks I've ever done ever. And, last year looked a little bit less and the year before looked a little bit less, but over time I've been able to put in some pretty good volume. And I mentioned before we started was working with a coach this year, adding in quite a bit of structured intensity a couple times, two, 3 times out of the week. And I've had to what I learned was having to back off on volume a little bit, to hit those quality runs. So, depending on what event I'm training for, the marathon, say like a month ago, I was doing a lot more high intensity or higher intensity. And then coming off that to transition within 5 weeks to bring the intensity down, the volume up, and then prepare for, something that's 24 hours long. So it's in flux, but, I think my bottom line mentality is get as much in as I can, as my body can take. And that's significantly built up over the years. And this is kind of my biggest year yet.
And are you doing much for cross training too, as well? Aside from running?
Yes. I think it's something that probably falls by the wayside for me. And when I was doing triathlon, it was much easier. Because I was riding a bike and swimming, and then I was in a structured triathlon plan where it was a lot of strength, a lot of conditioning, a lot of mobility, and that was built into the plan I was working with that triathlon coach. And now that within the past year, I've refocused back into running specifically. It hasn't been as structured, so I'll do it at times, and it's always the first thing that kind of goes, well, I could just run more volume. Why would I want to stretch, Mark?
Strength training? No, Adam, no strength training. No.
So I do see a PT occasionally to get workouts and some strengthening, but for the most part, I could be better in that area for sure.
Now you touched on you started off a lot of long distances, mm-hmm. And we had Jason Fitzgerald on. We've had Sabrina Little. We had Liza Howard. These great ultra runners, these great runners, and they all kind of give the nuggets of the higher intensity stuff. Mm-hmm. And a lot of new runners who might start off running way too fast, or they'll start off because they're heart rate based training. I'll run slow forever, and they don't get into the higher intensity stuff. What kind of higher intensity running are you doing? Are you doing tempo efforts? Are you doing intervals? Are you doing sprints? What are those higher to build the anaerobic system up and the aerobic system? What's that look like?
All of it. And I love what you said, because throughout my career, it looked very different. And I'll refresh what I said earlier, in the sense that when I started, I had 7.5 years of sitting on the couch and zero cardio. So that long, slow running is kind of where I started. And I was connected with a club in the DC area that was, doing a lot of heart rate based zone training. And I just did a lot of base building, and I didn't really necessarily understand it at the time. I enjoyed it. And I think it was to my benefit in those early years, because I had zero base at all. And then, you're right. I started to plateau because of that. And, through the triathlon training, it was helpful in the sense that it's a shorter distance. It's a 5K run. There's a lot of higher intensities, 400 meter, 800 meter efforts. And that was beneficial to help offset some of the long or slow stuff that I had previously done, or I guess maybe complement it. And then, now training for the marathon, it's a lot of 800, 1K, 1 mile efforts. And then, some longer tempos. And then to be frank, I like to race a lot too. So that's I like to put in some pretty big efforts there, but, and I don't know. That's what I enjoy. It's hard for me, and my coach knows this. It's hard for me to go out and run like a 40-minute, tempo or whatever. But training for this marathon, I had this workout where it was like 10 miles with a 40 or 45-minute whatever. And I just ran like a 2-mile warm up, like hopped in a local 10K and like ran. It's much easier in that sense for me. And then like did a 2-mile cool down and got my workout in harder than I would have done if I would have done it on my own. And
you're so bang on. Like, you know what? You see that on the schedule and you're like, I got to go do a 45-minute tempo. It seems so daunting.
Yeah.
I'll go do a 45-minute 10K. That's no problem.
That's right.
It's like time traveling with people around you. It's much easier.
Yeah, that's right. So I've learned over the years too, is like, a training plan is one thing, but how do we like keep it enjoyable, keep it fun, keep it interesting, keep us engaged and not try to get burnt out. Right. Because that's kind of where I was at triathlon, is a lot of like swimming alone and biking alone and doing very specific workouts. And I just, after like a year and a half of that, I was pretty burnt out. And I don't want to be that way when it comes to running, because this is, one of my biggest joys. And the way, the more we can keep it interesting, community, people around us, and, the less chance there is for burnout or us hating it like I did when I was younger, like your kids are now. I'm passionate about a lot of things. Maybe two things in relation to this context of today is, you mentioned people are on the fence about JFK. Oh, there now I am. Maybe some of your listeners or friends are on the fence about JFK, and I would say, hands down, like one of my favorite places to be in November or throughout the year, really. Yeah. That's why I've been back so many. I've done maybe 1 or 2 ultras twice. In JFK, I've done, this will be 7 times if I go this year. And, it's not to be missed, whether it's your first time or some people are on their like 40th time. It's the place to be, and just really encompasses a lot of the things that we talked about today. And then second, if you're in New York City or close by on October 15th and you want to come run a few miles on the treadmill next to me, or come and just squirt me with water or cheer me on, I'd love to have you. And there's ways to connect there, and reach out if you want to be a part of that.
That's fun.
Or binge watch Netflix with you, right?
Yeah, totally. That's right. I need to get somebody that'll just watch the show and I can just tag along and not have to think about it.
For sure.
That's awesome.
And Adam, where can folks find you? Where can they find you on social?
I have a website, just my name, adampopp.com. That links out to kind of everything. And then on Instagram is where I'm probably most active. And that's EOD Popp, P-O-P-P. I share quite a bit of my journey there as well.
Oh, excellent. And we'll share all that in the show notes for sure. And we would love to have you on after the October 24-hour treadmill. Oh, treadmill. Just saying it gets me scared, Adam. I don't know. The treadmills, that's scary. That's the biggest thing I could think about being scared about, is hanging out on a treadmill. So hats off to you for that.
And that's where we grow, right? Is in those uncomfortable times.
That's right.
Yeah. Thank you.
And
guys.
Adam, we never touched on this, but thank you for your service.
Absolutely.
We're from Canada. We see America as our brother, and Canada's smaller in stature, and we really appreciate having a big brother, and we really appreciate our military, our veterans, and active duty members, our first responders. It's fantastic, and we're much safer in the world for folks like you. Appreciate your service.
Well, I appreciate
Thank
that.
you.
It was my honor to serve. Funny side note, I was in Toronto a couple weeks ago for a job, leaving the hotel for a run, and this girl I know from the Canadian military came up. I was like, oh my God. And just like random passing, like somebody I knew from the Canadian military was there in Toronto at the same time, and said hey to me. So, yeah.
Well, next time you're in Toronto, Adam, you let us know. We'll definitely meet up for a run. We'll try to keep up with you, because your times are a lot faster than Mark and I. So you might have to slow down for us.
All about community, right? Not about time. So.
Absolutely. You're bang on it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you both. Hope to see you at JFK, and hope to connect in the near future.